Well, good evening, and you're listening to the new WCEG network on WCEGtalkradio.com, or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, or WCEG network. I'm Celeste Giordano, your show host, along with Sarah Poe, my co-host, and you're online with Building a Legacy Nonprofit in this new economy. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG network. And last but not least, a disclaimer: the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guest and not WCEG network. And thank you for your continued support. Good afternoon, ladies. How are you today?
Hey, Celeste.
Great.
We are glad to have you here, and I am glad to have Sarah Poe, my co-host, and we have a great lineup for you today. We have Maureen Cornwall from Home of Hope, Gwinnett's Children's Shelter. We have Deborah Fawaz with DD Faces, and we have Christine Martinello with the original Love Box. We have Shannon Donestay with Five-Star Social Media, I apologize. And we have Joan Williams with Williams and Associate. And I think I have included everybody here today. And Penny, we thank you and the WCEG community for allowing us to support this community. And what I'd like to do is, for a second or two, I'd like to have Sarah, where's Sarah, my co-host here. You know, I was thinking about this nonprofit event tonight here, Sarah, and I remember back in 2013 was the first networking event that I ever attended, and it's where I met you. And it was at a nonprofit event that Rodney Cameron, and God rest his soul, he's not with us anymore, but it was the Heart of Gwinnett, and it was a nonprofit group and networking group where I met you.
Yep.
And so that was one of the things that became very near and dear to my heart, where I was introduced into the nonprofit area was in 2013. And I was very passionate about serving in the nonprofit area. And those of you on this call that may know Rodney know that he was very passionate in giving back to his community in the Lawrenceville area and serving many of the nonprofit community there. Sarah, would you like to say a few comments about that?
Yeah, I met Rodney doing a festival in downtown Lawrenceville. It started out on March 17th, when everybody drinks green beer, and that's how it started. It started out as a business thing, and I met Rodney and a few other people, and every year we did this festival around March the 17th, and the last one I was in was the 5th or 6th year. So he really gave back to his community. Rodney just felt so strongly about giving back. And he instilled that in me and many of us that day that we were there for that first one. I was there at 5 o'clock in the morning, thought I had lost my mind. But, you know, it was fun to watch all the people, all the community, the business owners, everybody come together, and we had a great day. And Rodney instilled all that into us.
Absolutely. I remember the golf tournaments that raised money for the different organizations. I know that we raised money for the ambulance for the, it was
for the NICU.
NICU, yes, absolutely. So that's where I first started serving in the nonprofit area. And then later on, Sarah and I became one of the board members of the Heart of Gwinnett. And then the rest is history and all the other organizations that we've been a part of. And as of today in 2020, Sarah and I are the co-founders of the Women of Community Impact, which does the same thing, where we give back to the community. And we're one of the organizations that we have served this year is Home of Hope. And we have, as one of our guest speakers today, Maureen Cornwall with Home of Hope as the executive director. And Maureen, would you open this meeting up here today, or this radio show, about where you started as with the Home of Hope, or where it was a public event and then it went private, and just share with us about that, please?
Sure. It's a little bit of a testimony of mine, how I got here and how God ordered the steps that brought me to Home of Hope Equinet Children's Shelter. My background was never nonprofit management. It was actually commercial real estate many years ago. And as my kids, I was fortunate enough to be home with my kids, and I started serving at a local food pantry and ended up being a volunteer there for 2 years and became their executive director and was there for a total of 11 years doing some great things in the community. Found out I had some leadership skills. Some people call it bossy. We'll just call them leadership skills. And so in running that other nonprofit brought me to what was 6 years ago, Gwinnett Children's Shelter here. And the children's shelter here needed to go in another direction. It was a state contracted facility, but not a state owned facility. And they were losing money, just things were changing. The foster care system was changing, the way they place kids. This was a holding facility, if you will, by state contract for almost 25 years, where kids who were pulled out of the home, teenagers, were placed here through Department of Family and Children's Services and Department of Juvenile Justice. So the goal was to hold them here till they could have foster care placement or reunification to the home. When that business model was no longer working, they needed a new executive director. I had an idea. It seemed like a perfect fit. And I was brought over here to implement the program that we now run, which was an idea in my head many years ago. So now Home of Hope Equinet Children's Shelter is a transitional living facility for homeless children from birth to 17 with their young moms. The idea is that we are a multi-generational approach to ending that cycle of homelessness for 2 generations at one time. The young mom who works hard in our program and then her children coming up after her won't know the extended stay hotel life or sleeping in their car for having been through our program. And all the while we get to keep the family unit together, let kids be free to be kids, and we teach mom to fish.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Maureen. And you're going to share a little bit more with us a little bit later about building stellar boards and a little bit about grant writing. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to go over to Deborah Fawaz. And Deborah, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company before we get started, please?
I'm Deborah Fawaz. I own a company called Dee Dee Faces, and we are a concierge level image company. And I'm sure that many of you are thinking, this is a 501c3 conversation. Why do we care about our image? And I am going to talk about that in a little bit. But what also wasn't in my bio is that I'm president of Johns Creek Women's Club in Johns Creek, and we are a 501c3 who our chosen charity is Wellspring Living. So I've been on all sides of this as a member, a board member, a leader, and somebody that teaches other people to really maximize their impact in the community.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Appreciate that. Let's go. Christine Martinella, tell us about you and your organization, please. We're so glad to have you tonight.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks, Celeste. Yeah, I'm Christine Martinello, and I am the CEO of Training Solutions International. And I'm also the inventor of the original Love Box products. And so I pretty much spread love all over the world with my love agents. Oh my goodness. And I have a very nonprofit background. I actually have been a development director. I've been a foundation director, given away millions of dollars. I've run a capital campaign, and now I'm blessed to be a philanthropist. So I've stood on every side of the nonprofit and profit sector.
Very good. And we're excited to hear about the things that you're going to share with us about how nonprofits can use the original Love Box for, I'm lost for words here right this minute, for
well, it can be used as a donor gift and can be used in nonprofits to really recognize and appreciate and unify both the people who are served and then the donor community as well.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
I'm reading your mind, Celeste.
I know you are. We had a little technical difficulties and I still got to get in the zone here. So thank you for your patience and thank you for our listeners' patience. I'd like to move on to Joan Williams. And Joan, would you tell us a little bit about you and your company and what you're going to talk about tonight for the nonprofit?
Yes. Hello, I'm Joan Williams and I own Williams and Associates, and I'm all about helping other people live healthier lives. And I have a background in education, having come as a nutrition director for a large school system. And also before that, a family consumer science teacher. So I hope you all loved maybe your home economics teacher back in the day. But I love helping other people win and reach their dreams and goals. I'm going to be talking about nutrition and wellness, and I will kind of open the mystery of how in the world this relates to a nonprofit a little bit later in the program.
Very good. Thank you very much. Ms. Shannon Donasay.
Hey everybody, I'm Shannon Donasay with 5-Star Social Media, and I am going to be talking about how a nonprofit should be really focusing on social media, some of the do's and the don'ts that a nonprofit wants to realize in regards to their social media presence. So.
Very good. I appreciate that. And as our co-host, Sarah, tell us a little bit about you and your company, please.
I'm Sarah Poe with Poe's Accounting Services. So with that, how can I help a nonprofit? I can help them start. I can help them fill out their paperwork to become a 501(c) or 8 or 10 or 12. There's so many different ones of them. I can help them file their taxes, which there's 4 different forms there that you could do. And then it can help them make sure they keep track of their donors correctly so that they can send out their year-end statements. And then we just help them with their bookkeeping and accounting and all of that. So Poe's Accounting Services just likes to help the nonprofit stay legit.
Very good. I appreciate that. And I'm Celeste Giordano. I'm a master sales strategist and a business mentor with CelesteGiordano.com. And I work with business entrepreneurs, direct sales teams, corporations to exponentially increase sales and profit through lead generation, building relationships, and accountability. And we're going to talk about some strategies of how you can grow your business, especially in a sponsorship for nonprofits. And what I'd like to start off with first is I'd like for Sarah to talk to us a little bit about some of the 10 best business practices for nonprofits in the accounting area.
Okay. So, nonprofits have to be set up properly. They also need a good financial plan that provides for their financial resources that support the programs and services that they provide through their nonprofit mission. So they need to have a budget to be able to do that. They need adequate cash flow for the normal operations. And while I'm talking about normal operations, with the COVID-19, nonprofits were eligible for the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. I don't know if the Home of Hope got their little bit of cha-ching there to help them, but nonprofits could apply for that. So that helps with the normal operations, especially the payroll at this time, especially when I'm sure money's a little bit tighter than normal. Nonprofits develop an annual budget, regular monitors the budget to determine, evaluate, and respond to any variations. The nonprofit has a developmental plan with measurable targets, deadlines, responsible parties, and the goals tied directly to that annual budget. Nonprofits have internal controls governing all financial operations. An example would be for a nonprofit to have written policies that govern separation of responsibilities with respect to receiving, recording, and depositing checks, purchasing, expense accounts, and compensation, with oversight from senior staff and the board. If there is a separation of these people and those who prepare the financial statement. So I wouldn't necessarily be on the board, but I could prepare the financial statements, a separation of duties.
And isn't that
The non-
something, Sarah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but isn't that something that a nonprofit, should they be getting a P&L statement on a monthly basis, quarterly basis?
This a nonprofit the size of Marine should be looking at that on a monthly basis, right? It depends on the size and what your operations is, at least quarterly and monthly. Don't wait till yearly, because then you can't always remember all the details. It's hard to go back and figure things out after it's said and done.
Very good.
So a nonprofit has realistic fundraising plans with activities and goals. Those are goals and fundraising plan clearly tied to the annual budget. Our staff and volunteers who have primary responsibility from fundraising identification. Be sure you can describe who is responsible for fundraising and his or her role. See, I love Marines fundraising. I love going out there to the Coolray Stadium and enjoying a day of barbecue and brews, and that's always fun. The nonprofit procedures and review financial statements regular, just like Celeste was just talking about, by the board of directors. The nonprofit prepares an annual report, including statements of financial condition, revenue, and expenses, and makes its annual report available to the interested parties and stakeholders. The nonprofit has a well-developed and comprehensive evaluation system used to measure and report the impact of each program and services that can be used for grant reporting and stakeholder public accountability. So those are some of the 10 best practices for nonprofits. I've mentioned a little bit about the PPP. One thing I do want to bring up that is going to start next year, a lot of people like to give to nonprofits. Well, when the standard deduction came along, we lost the ability to take that as part of our tax return because the standard deduction was higher than our Schedule A. Starting next year, you'll be able to take $300 for charitable giving right off the front of your 1040. You won't have to do that on your Schedule A any longer. So the government is hoping that helps nonprofits for people to give back to them, because when people lost that deduction, some people quit giving. So we're hoping that helps the nonprofits out there.
What are some of the legal requirements of setting up a 501c3, Sarah?
So there's two different forms with the IRS. There's a 1023 and a 1023-EZ. If you believe that your income is going to be $50,000 or under, the 1023-EZ is a much easier form to fill out to become a nonprofit. And the cost of that is approximately $275. If you believe that your nonprofit in the first 5 years is going to be over $50,000, then you need to fill out Form 1023, which is a $600 cost. And that I have done that a few times. You need a few days to do that one, to do it properly. That's the first step. Then you've got a form with your state that you need to fill out. You need to get an EIN number. You need to make sure you've got a board, and I'm sure some other people are going to be talking about some of that other stuff. But you need to make sure that you've got good policies in place, and you need to make sure you file a tax return every year. Because if you don't file a tax return within 3 years, you'll be dissolved. And then you've got to go through that whole process all over again.
All right. And can the founder of a nonprofit also serve on the board?
I would. Again, that's up to the bylaws and everything of the board, right? If it's my nonprofit, I want to be thoroughly involved. I want to know that my vision is being carried out, and part of that's by being on the board.
All right. Another question is concerning insurance, and insurance for the, make sure that you have business insurance, you have insurance that covers your volunteers, and also separate insurance that covers your board. Yes,
the board, it's like I'm a CPA, so I have errors and omission insurance. So the board would have something similar to that. So if they make an error or omission, they're covered. The nonprofit would have to have a certain type of insurance liability if they've got employees, workman's comp. And if they do big events, they would need some type of an umbrella policy to cover them for any liability that something went wrong. I was at a festival one year and there was wind blowing and somebody didn't have their tent tied down good and the tent took off and hit a lady in the head. So the nonprofit could have been sued because it was their festival. So you need to make sure that you're covered for that.
Absolutely. Anybody on the group here right now? Christine, do you have any questions for Sarah?
Well, I actually was interested in about when you are starting a nonprofit. So you have to fill out all these forms. Sounds like you have to file for the insurance, get insurance and the taxes. Is there anything else?
Well, you gotta file with the state and the treasury, the insurance, and you need to make sure that you pick a board who is it's a wide variety of people in your area so that you're touching all different parts of the community, right? Because you want them to be invested in what you're doing.
What's an ideal board size, or is someone else going to talk about that?
Maureen is going to talk about building the legacy board.
Okay, great.
Odd number.
So the voting there can be a clear vote. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think I have served, Sarah and I both have served almost with everybody on this call here tonight. We have served as a volunteer, we've served as committee members, and we have served several nonprofits giving back to the community. So, I appreciate each and every one of you. Let's see here. I would like to have Deborah Fawaz. Would you talk to us a little bit tonight, Deborah, about the importance of a first impression, whether it be the founder, a committee member, a chapter president, any of all of the above, of how important your presence is in running
Certainly.
a legacy nonprofit. Thank you.
So when you're going out to ask for something, it might be you're asking for volunteers, or you're asking for members, or you're asking for people to be on the board or help with the project, or sponsors, donations, locations. You're basically having a sales conversation with somebody. And a lot of us say like, oh, I'm not good at sales, I'm not in sales. Well, you were having a sales conversation with your parents when you wanted the keys when you were 17. I mean, that's what conversations to influence people are about. And so when you are asking for all that, you are the face of your organization. So it's really important that you are polished and professional, whether you are on a call on the computer, whether you are on a phone call or in person, because you will be in person again.
Deborah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, you just want to really be aware of how people receive you and perceive you. So they need to perceive you in a leadership role. They need to perceive you as confident, reliable, trustworthy, because they're giving you their time, their money, both. They might be asking their kids to volunteer for you. So it's not really about your hair and makeup. It's about what kind of effort did you make to present yourself? Because again, you're the face of your organization, not just being the president, but in any role where you're going out for an ask, you're representing your organization.
Absolutely, Deborah. And one of the things that I hear all the time with nonprofits is they're looking for sponsorships because they have a vision, they have a plan, they have a goal. And so therefore, they're going to execute this plan and they're going to do XYZ for this particular nonprofit organization. And then they want to raise money and they want to get volunteers and things of this nature. And how important is that image when you're going to ask somebody to be a sponsor, to be a gold sponsor, a platinum sponsor, or you're asking for money to help benefit and give back to the community?
They need to really feel comfortable that your group isn't going anywhere, even if they're new. My group in Johns Creek is only 3 years old. But what can you show to them about your commitment, your level of commitment? And this may sound a little silly, but if you can't put a little lipstick on and comb your hair in the back, you don't look like you put forth any effort to be there. And so it's really like you're going to a job interview. What would you do if you're asking somebody to hire you? Because you're going out there with an ask, regardless of your role in the organization. And I mean, I have a whole signature talk about first impressions, and there's so much science behind that. And the bottom line is it's about 7 seconds. So if you're on the phone, you need to get the distractions in the house quieted down. If you're going to call somebody to make an appointment or to make an ask, the kids are put away, the dog's up, you have a smile on your face before you ever dial the number. People hear that in your voice.
And how about when you're going to networking events, your impression, especially when you're representing a nonprofit?
Well, you know, I feel like that goes across all the areas of whether you're representing your own business, a nonprofit, your church, whatever it is. When you walk through the door, you need to look engaged and happy to be there. So if you're looking down at your phone, you're not engaged. If you're still screaming at your kids on the phone, you're not engaged. If you go over and put your purse down and sit down in the corner, people perceive like, she doesn't really want to be here. You don't have to be the extrovert in the room. Just don't fade into the wall, okay?
Very good. Could you also give us a few tips about how to maximize the impact we have as a leader in our nonprofit?
Right, because your presence when you communicate with people, like I said, if it's on the phone, online, or in person, people have to feel confident in you. They have to feel like you have confidence. You want to enter that conversation smiling. They want to know that you're trustful, dependable, reliable. Again, they're giving you time, money, and resources. You're ethical. So what is it about you that can give that presentation? You're not going to walk up to somebody, you know, in their business with your dog and your 2-year-old screaming on your hip. Then you look desperate. I know that sounds like a gross exaggeration, but you know, life happens, right? So you have to schedule and plan, and you have to think, what is my intention of making this phone call? What is my intention of going to talk to this person? How do I want them to receive me? And what do I want out of this?
You know, absolutely, Deborah. And, you know, I know that you and I have done some workshops together on first impressions and building a legacy business. And one of the things is who you are in your personal life is who you are in your business life. And they're really one and the same. You can't be one way in your personal life and one way in your business life or nonprofit. So who you are in your personal life is who you are in your business life. And the other thing is when people see you, you know, what values do you see in yourself? You know, and I just like to, Joan, when people look at you, what values do you feel that they see in you?
Sincerity and a desire to just listen to them and connect them to resources to help them in whatever area that might be. I do Bible studies for single women, and as well as, you know, work in my business and develop teams and do consultations. And in every case, I'm just trying to meet their needs and help them in whatever capacity.
Okay.
And that was a great point about listening. Don't go in there, whether it's on a phone call, at networking, or, you know, a festival, and just talk about yourself and your group. Go in there and be interested in the other person. That makes you more memorable, and that makes people obviously remember you and want to connect with you again.
And that's true, Deborah, because what people see you, it magnifies 10 times. So if they see somebody that's insecure, they see that magnified 10 times. If they see somebody very confident, that's magnified 10 times. So it's very important of who you are in your personal life is who you are in your business life, and why your first impression and your personal image is so important in the nonprofit area as well as the business area. And I'm sure that Maureen will share some things with us. Sarah, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to say to Deborah?
No, but I'd like to give her a shout out because when I look in the mirror in the morning, I think of her. Will Deborah approve of what I'm wearing? And that always gets my mindset right before I walk out the door, so that I am being effective in whatever I'm doing that day.
Thank you, Sarah. And the last thing I'll say, and I'll be quiet, is practice your ask. And maybe Maureen will talk about that. Don't just think about what am I going to say when I get there or call the person. Practice it. Because when we're anxious, we all stumble over our words. So it doesn't matter if you practice it into your phone, to the dog, to your spouse, but practice it so it just kind of rolls out.
Well, and one thing that I'd like to say is, and I have been a client of Deborah Fawaz's with a VIP day, and probably one of the biggest things that changed my life 7 years ago from the direct selling field into being a business entrepreneur in the coaching and consulting industry was your personal image. And so, and by having an experience with a personal image consultant, with a professional photo of yourself is a huge thing. And that's a whole new area right there. And Deborah, maybe you would like to add a couple of comments about the pictures that you use on social media or for your business, that it should be a professional picture.
Absolutely. And I don't want to shame anyone. Shannon's going to talk about social media. And if you're just starting your business or your nonprofit and you don't have extra income, certainly people start it with a selfie, but don't. Have somebody else take your picture with their phone in portrait mode after you put your best look together with something very not busy behind you. The background is a lot. Like, we don't want to be looking at you and focused on where'd she get that picture or whatever. She needs to clean out her bookcase, whatever that is. So people make instantaneous judgments. We don't mean to do it. We're not rude and selfish, but that's how the subconscious brain works. And so you have to be aware of that. If you can hire a professional photographer to take your headshot, you can keep that for several years. It is a great investment.
Absolutely. It's life-changing. And I know for our listeners here tonight, if you have any questions, I believe there's a chat that Shannon, if you could tell us where they could put those questions, we would love for them to put some questions. We're going to have a Q&A at the end of this session. And I know you and Penny are the ones that are seeing the other things. So I'm just going to ask you to tell us, where can they put their questions?
So on YouTube, I checked, and on this live stream, the comments are disabled. So it would be something where maybe after we could have them post some comments on, we could enable the comments on YouTube, or even on their Facebook page, they could post comments. So I'll put at the end the contact information. So also too, if you have contact information for any of the panelists, you'll have their information where you can reach out to that person specifically and follow up.
Very good. Thank you so much, Shannon. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Okay. Deborah, thank you so much for that advice. And we're going to ask a few more questions a little bit later. I would like to ask Maureen, are you there? Are you back with us, Maureen?
Back.
Back. Great. We talked a little bit when Sarah was talking about a board and the 10 business practices. And would you tell us about building a stellar board and what to look for? Because in coaching and consulting with a lot of nonprofits, what I understand is that they don't understand the difference between a true board member and a committee member.
Right. So if we're talking to and about people who are starting new nonprofits, I would encourage everybody to be strategic about who you bring to your board. People who can help you move the needle to implement change and have passion for the cause in which you're building your nonprofit. For us, everyone on the board, obviously everybody cares about children, but we have people who, we have our lawyer, we have our accountant, we have marketing people, we have people who like to help with events, all different strategic partners that can help us move the needle and bring new interest to Home of Hope Equinet Children's Shelter. So there's a methodology when you're planning about what your nonprofit is, who and how to bring them to the table and to bring them to your cause.
All right. So, sometimes what is the difference? Some of the newer nonprofits that I have experienced talking with, that they have a committee, but they don't have a board, but then they're saying the committee is the board. So, can you sort of explain the difference between that? And the one thing that I have shared with them, and I think in a workshop that we've done, and you've been a guest speaker a couple of times in this nonprofit area, is it's very hard to go back on your word when you say something the first time.
Well, let's back up a minute now. When you're starting a nonprofit, you've got to have a board. You've got to have your mission statement, your vision statement, your strategic plan, your board. And when you have a board, the board has subcommittees. You're going to have your fund development committee, your finance committee, your executive board, your facilities maintenance committee, depending on what your nonprofit is. So you need to have your infrastructure properly in place in steps in order to, when you put yourself out there and go for funding to potential grantors, you've got to have the infrastructure in place first and properly for you to be taken seriously to apply for any kind of funding. It can't be loosey-goosey. You can't be your executive director and your board chair also. Somebody else has to do it. So I would encourage people to ask, shoot me an email. I'm always happy to help set up what that infrastructure should look like, especially for newer, smaller nonprofits who need the hand up to get their great idea off the ground.
One of the last workshops that we did on building a legacy nonprofit, Maureen, you talked about with the board, a lot of times people want to have their best friends or their executive director or something like that, who is maybe their best friend on the board. And you gave advice to the group about the kind of people that you want on the board.
Well, as I said, you need strategic partners and community leaders. I'm trying to remember what that was around, but yes, it's easy to say, you want your best friend because they're passionate about your cause as well. And maybe there's a role for them in your organization. But when you're forming and planning your board, you have to be strategic in your thinking. How will you be taken seriously in the community if you just have a group of your friends on the board and you're kind of closed off in this island? You've got to bring people to your board who can help further your mission and further your cause. I don't want to repeat myself, but it's never a good idea just to bring your friends on the board. Be strategic in your thinking and your planning of what
Absolutely.
that looks like and why. Mm-hmm.
And also, I think that you talked about in your board members, like you said, they need to be actively involved.
Yes, they need to be actively involved. It's a requirement. So, for example, as we all know, you have to have 100% participation from your board as buy-in, certainly financially. for an organization our size, there is no way I could go apply for any kind of funding if I did not have 100% board participation. In the makeup of your board, when you set up your bylaws and that infrastructure, our bylaws state how the whole organization operates, and includes in our bylaws each role and function of each board member in each committee, to include 100% board participation financially is a requirement to be on the board. And we do that because, they're bought into the mission, and I go out and ask other people to fund us, and certainly the people closest to us should be contributing as well. But I want to go back for a second to something, Deborah said about asking for money, especially in these COVID times. I know you were going to ask me something about asking people for money. I will tell you, I've been doing this a long time now. I am still incredibly uncomfortable asking people for money. And people find that very surprising with the size of my budget and the fact we have no government money and we have to raise it privately every year. But I'm telling you, I get sweat under my blazer running down my back. I'm fear of rejection, all these, I think the biggest thing is fear of being told, no, we can't help you, and that's just part of what we do. What's interesting right now is asking during COVID. I mean, there's two schools of thought around asking for help right now. A lot of the funding that's out there is geared toward food insecurity in the medical clinics, and that's justifiably so. They just well deserved. And then there's us who's still helping the homeless and keeping people here on a reduced staff. And, I went to ask a major donor for some funding. We had been having conversations, and when I got him on the phone, it was probably a month or so ago, I stopped myself and I said, Mr. So-and-so, here's why I called, and this feels so wrong to me. It seems like the world's upside down. Just keep this in mind. I couldn't do it. It wasn't the right time. And I've kind of stuck to that and had an email with him today too, saying that, the whole world's still upside down. Think about how you would like to be approached or what's going on in the world. And, is it the right thing to do? Again, it's still very uncomfortable to me, but the whole world, I'm still trying to go 85 miles an hour down the highway, and the whole world's going 4. So if I don't slow down, I put everybody in danger as well. I need to sit still and go 4 with everybody else till we get through this and see what's going on. And I just wanted to, when I heard Deborah talking about asking for funding, I kind of was smiling to myself because I thought, boy, if they only knew I raise $1 million a year and I can't stand asking for money. So it's pretty interesting.
Well, and you said some very key things in there, Maureen, that we have talked about as well, because I think it's very important as a nonprofit that you have an inner circle of people that, maybe they don't serve on the board, but they do have a vested interest in wanting to give back to the community. And one thing that I know, and Sarah, I like Sarah to add to this, is the Women of Community Impact. We just have a circle, and it's not raising millions of dollars, but it is for an event or a cause, for like we did for Easter, where it's Easter, and it's just like we'd like to do something special for the mothers and the and children, because not that you don't give them a great opportunity there and you take good care of them, but it's something that's extra special, that's over and beyond, that somebody comes in and does for them. And we just sort of have an inner circle, Sarah, where we just pick the phone up and just say, here's the deal. God laid it on my heart that we're going to do an Easter dinner for Home of Hope. And we need to reach out and raise this much money to buy this, and get this person to help. And we just, all of a sudden, it just like a ripple effect that we reach out to those people. And then like within 24 hours, we had the volunteers and the money, and it wasn't a big thing, but it was a big thing to the women and children for Easter dinner. So
and this year was harder too, right? Because we couldn't come there and serve and do the gifts with the kids and all that. So it felt strange at first to think, well, how can we go about doing this? You had Easter and Mother's Day, and those are both two very important holidays for the families there.
Mhm.
And you had to go out and ask people, oh, by the way, we want to do this, but we can't go and serve. And most of the people that we deal with and that help us, they like the serving part. They like being part of those families.
And
It was a little bit different.
Yeah, I should say those community partnerships over and above, aside from the board, the civic organizations such as your organization who comes so regularly to help us, those are huge. They are not board members, but they're an integral part of what we do here in serving our families. So very much needed and appreciated. It was very different this year. It still is. We're not bringing volunteers in. Our guests had all been on stay in place here, and we were the biggest risk coming and going to our residents because they were here on campus. So now that ban has been lifted and they can come and go, we just have all different procedures in place and do the best we can. Wear masks when in common areas and wash our hands, but everybody's coming and going, and we can't keep them here. So it's different, but we are trying to minimize risk. Like we have eliminated our life skills training for now, not bringing in other people off site, not bringing in volunteers to be with the kids. And right now we're going to reevaluate that in the end of June, look at it again, but everything is different. So we're just trying to do the best we can and keep people as safe as we can, and still rely heavily on our civic organizations to help us do what we do.
And I also want to say, Maureen, that when Easter came around and we talked about this, and I called Sarah and I called Lynn Chapman from Renaissance Bank, that's on the board, and we said the same thing. Well, what do you think? Do you think it's all right for us to ask people to help in this? And I think my comment, and Sarah and I, we agreed on this. We said, well, we will ask the inner circle of people that can help, and those that can, that's great. Those that can't, then we'll figure out a way. And we figured out a way to do that. But the other thing is that we involved other nonprofits in this as well. So sometimes, people do things, and they do things because they truly want to serve, but also think about the camaraderie that you can build with other nonprofit organizations, because there was Beyond the Ribbon, Bobby Minnick with Beyond the Ribbon. There was Lisa Patterson with Table Ministries that we have been a part of, that are nonprofits themselves, and for a couple of years now, they've been a part of helping us give back to the Home of Hope. Is that not true, Sarah?
Oh, that's very true. Yes.
So
I've said for years, Celeste, that we're all supposed to help one another. When we get donations we can't use, we send it down to the co-op. We send over to Home First. We send wherever the need is. I said this when I go out and speak. It costs a candle nothing to light another candle.
that's right. Absolutely.
And
And believe it or not, we had people that knew other people that wanted to donate and did things. The gifts for the mothers on Easter came from a lady that Stephanie, Kabaki's Catering. Stephanie comes with Kabaki's Catering, somebody that she delivered a meal to the hospital, and these nurses got together and delivered the mother's gifts for Easter. And I mean, that's how it's just a ripple effect that goes to each other. So, and one other thing that I would like for you to comment on, Maureen, is when we're talking about sponsorships, is that we also have corporations that allot so much money for grants and to give back to nonprofits. And a lot of people don't understand to do their due diligence to look that up, because they can go online and look those things up. Yeah. And there's different timelines of when you have to apply. And also another thing is to check back at the end of the year, because a lot of corporations don't use all their grant money or their sponsorship money by the end of December. And so they have to use it and give it away. And a lot of people don't follow up with those corporations at the end of the year to see if there's anything left.
Well, let me address a few things on grant writing. First of all, know who you're applying to. Make sure that organization aligns with your mission. I'll give you an example. Makes no sense for me to apply to the Arthur Blank Foundation. Their funding is usually around childhood obesity and childhood, I believe, education. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it wasn't a fit for what we do here. love the organization, love that they give. We just weren't the fit. The other thing, so I would say know who you're applying to and make sure there's a fit. You can usually find all that when you research a foundation on their homepage, tells you what they fund and what they don't fund. The other thing is there are grant cycles. Sometimes most foundations will have them in spring and fall. Make sure you know when you're applying. If you miss a deadline, they don't care. You have to wait till the next one around. The
That's
other
right.
thing is if someone gives you funding, I'll give you an example. I got a very large grant and the year-end report is due June 1st. I hit send a couple hours ago today with a one-page report of how it was spent, pictures of the repairs and the new things that we bought with it. That is very important. If you miss your deadline on reporting, they will remember that, and you've got to be thankful. I mean, you know, let them know where their money went and do your reporting. The other thing is corporations. I think I mentioned this the last time we spoke. A lot of large corporations have shifted their philanthropy dollars to their marketing budgets. And I say this with Publix in mind. I can say it, it came from their lips to my ears. It was when I was looking for funding. Yeah, Maureen, we've shifted our philanthropy dollars to our marketing budget. Publix wants to put our dollars in the community where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. For example, we may not fund your Diamonds Gala at Chateau Lawn in October, but we are interested in funding your barbecue festival in March, you know, where their name gets splashed over everything. So you have to know who you're asking for money and know where they like to fund. And again, all that information is usually available on their website.
Absolutely. State Farm, Coca-Cola, all of them, you know, and a lot of them are tied to some type of education or something along that line. That they want some education, or some of them require it to be specifically for children or something along that line. So it's important to do your homework, do your due diligence, and to know that is important.
Yes.
Anything else that you want to add about grant writing? I know grant writing is a big thing, and I know you've done a phenomenal job in grant writing.
Oh gosh, I'll tell you, you know how I learned how to write a grant way back when I started volunteering a nonprofit and took over the first nonprofit I was director of. I Googled what is a grant and how do you write them? That's how I learned how to write my first $5,000 grant, $10,000 grant. And who knew all these years later, I'm getting $200,000 and $300,000 grants. And, you know, what I've learned is there are organizations our size who have full-time fund development directors, grant writers, or one and the same. I couldn't pay someone to write with the passion that I have when I write about what we do
Absolutely.
here and the families. And I know in my heart of hearts that makes a huge difference. It shows in my writing when I write a grant. I read it back and I'm like, I feel it. I know it. I know it to be true. You can't pay someone, you know, you can, but for me personally, I take great pride in writing for the grants and sharing stories of our kids and our families. And I think that makes a big difference to the person on the receiving end writing about what your passion is.
Absolutely. And one thing, some advice on grant writing is why it's so important. And Sarah, you may want to come in on this, of why it's so important to document and keep good notes of everything that you're doing and giving back, because you're going to have to include that in the grant writing.
I did forget to say that data was really important. You know, whether data is very important. People want to see how many people you served, what your success rate is, how many children you served, you know, all of that data matters, and it shows and it goes well in reports and in grant writing. So sorry, Sarah.
Yeah, no.
Okay. What about pictures? Are pictures a big part of that? Or do you have to get releases from people?
I use pictures, usually of the campus, but when we do ones of kids, we absolutely have a release on file. And we usually, moms sign a release when they come in, that sometimes we take pictures for, you know, they agree to it. But if I take new pictures, we always ask.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's another thing with nonprofits and even businesses, that when you have an event, you do need to get a release You need to have a release with your volunteers that they sign a proper documentation, whether it be for any pictures or videos or anything that they release that to the nonprofit. So that's important to do that. The other thing that I was going to, you said something that we were talking about, and I can't think of what it was.
Well, let me talk about your release that you were just talking about with volunteers. That's another very important thing. I can
Yes.
to the children's shelter. We have volunteers who have volunteer training, and they sign a privacy agreement. They also sign, there are boundaries. You know, you might get along well with one of our moms and her kids, but if you start trading phone numbers and now you're picking her up and taking in your car into your house and here and there, I mean, things like that, you have to have clear defined boundaries that keeps your guests safe and your agency protected as well. So, and I'm sure that plays into every different agency and nonprofit in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely, you know, and that's the other thing we were talking about at our workshop on the insurance, why it's so important that you have volunteers. And if a volunteer, if you're, let's say you're dealing with homeless people and you're going out into the communities, into hotels and this or that, you better make sure your business has some business insurance, because you don't know what could happen to that volunteer serving that homeless person in a hotel, this or that, and they are there on your behalf. So that's important. I know what it was I was going to talk about. It was when we were talking about grant writing, Sarah, and what it was is that how it's important for the people in your nonprofit that are, whether it be your I don't know why I'm having a hard time with this tonight. Whether it be your board members or your committee members, or if you have different chapters or whatever, that you have their bios and their pictures and things that they've done in the community, that these are the type of people that you have in your organization that are helping you and they're growing you. Do they not ask for that in part of some of the grant writing, some of the people, then what their backgrounds are?
Is that for Sarah?
For you and Sarah.
Most grants that I write, I include my board, everybody who's on my board, and
Yes.
bios if they ask for it, but usually a board list and what their relationship is, community leader, what their role is on the board. But on our website, we keep our board members, our executive board, and their pictures and bios. People like to know who they're giving to.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Shannon will talk to us about that with the social media and stuff like that.
And also in some tax returns, you need that information. Who's on your board? How are they compensated? What do they do? How many hours do they spend? All those type of things that is part of the tax return.
Very good. Any other questions? Any of our guests have any questions for Maureen concerning building a board, grant writing? Okay, thank you so much, Maureen. We appreciate that. Also, for our listeners and everything, Shannon, you'll put a thing in the YouTube thing or the Facebook thing of how they can get a hold of us for any questions. And the next person that I'd like to ask to speak to us tonight, and I'm excited of what she's going to share, is Christine Martinello with the Original Love Box. So Christine, tell us how can we use the Original Love Box and how it can be used, as we talked about earlier, to engage our donors now.
There are so many ways. I know that many people might not even know what a love box is. So let me just take a moment and explain that to you. This is the original love box here. We also have the Christmas love box. And so this is, as you can see, is a box. And what is in the box is love notes. And so I'll show you those next. There's love notes and then a book. So basically what the tradition is that a group gets together. Traditionally, it was a family. Now board members, business owners, women's groups get together. Everyone writes a love note to everyone else in your group. You put the love notes in the box, you pass the box around, you take one out and you read it out loud to each other. That was the first use of this starting in 1999 on Christmas Eve with my family. It has since grown so much. So we've had the original love box out now for 3 years, and then the Christmas one for 5. And there are so many ways. It's used from birth to death, everything from baby showers to celebration ceremonies, and everything in between. So for nonprofits specifically, though, it has a lot of uses. There are so many campaigns that we've run, everything from, when the Orlando shooting or the Dayton shooting, we've had teams of love agents write love notes, raise money for love boxes. Those go to the families so that they can be healed. It goes to schools. Really, we've been doing a lot of charitable work for 4 years straight, almost every month. So the team of love agents are really busy. Even though it's a business, they're all volunteers. They all feel strongly about spreading love in the world. And so right now we're running a campaign that's been amazingly successful and impactful. And it's with hospitals and medical facilities. So I was challenged at the beginning of COVID. Another dynamo woman said, "Why don't you make a digital love note?" And I was like, "No." We have all this, it's so much work. But she said, "Gosh, you know what? You could send love notes all around the world if it was digital." That's very good. Fair enough. So we created the digital love note in a matter of 2 weeks from concept to creation. And now digital love notes go to healthcare heroes all over the world. I was just on Fox News a couple of days ago, 3 days ago, because the love agents just take an idea and go with it. So a team of the love agents wanted to renovate a break room at Northeast Georgia Hospital. And so what we did was we got my team of love agents, and I partnered with another woman, Leanne Paw, who runs N2 Publishing. And she worked with the team to get all of the physical things. So an 8-foot tall love note, that's a chalkboard that we wrote love notes on, a string about 25 feet long, a string with love notes stuck to it, and healthcare workers get to go in that room. It's called the rejuvenation room now. And it's really, we recreated it as an oasis of love, fresh flowers, beautiful greenery, beautiful love note stations. There's love box stations that the health heroes can just go into. We wrote over 260 handwritten love notes to health heroes. And then there were over 500 blank ones that they could write to their patients, their families, their friends, people that are supporting them. So we had this incredible chain of love. And I'm working with the foundation director at Northeast Georgia. And, it's just an awesome donor gift. It strengthens the bonds between everyone who does it. So can be a donor gift where you have someone from the organization write love notes to, maybe your board members, maybe your committee members. And it's the kind of thing that it creates a legacy of love. So it's not something that you do once and you forget about. Every time you think about them, you can write another love note, or the people that are actually served in the organization can write love notes to the people who serve them, because that's really important too. Because everyone who writes a love note and everyone who reads one, all parties are served, because when we give love or we get it, we're all served by that. So it's an incredible opportunity to connect with your donors, to connect with your people that you serve. And really just your imagination is almost the limit, because we've seen it used in a variety of ways.
That's so true, Christine. And I want to say you and I met in 2016, and you have generously donated the love notes. We wrote love notes to the Amanda Riley Foundation, who work with children with cancer. And we wrote love notes to the children that were in the hospital with cancer. Sarah, you were a part of all this. Joan was a part of this. We also have written many love notes to Home of Hope, Maureen, for the women and children there through the different organizations. So, it is a very special thing to be able to do that. And one thing is also that you mentioned, it also about spreading love, but also about building relationships with people. And I think that's very huge, is, like when people donate and do things. You can write, you write a thank you letter, you can do a professional letter, but just think about if you have a committee or you have some volunteers that write a thank you letter to that platinum donor or that gold sponsor donor, what a nice thing that has to do with that.
Yeah, even in these days of technology, we're so high tech, and yet people want to be high touch, because that's what's missing, is like that personal, intimate connection. So a handwritten note is so special. I mean, do you keep your texts or your, emails? No, but you probably keep a love note, and what we also did, love notes and put them in purses. We did that Project Repurse with Danella for years and years, because when my eldest son went off to college, he wanted to take some of the love notes and put them in his wallet. This was even before we had a product, but we had all these love notes that were just scraps of paper that, his aunts and uncles and grandma and grandpa had written for him, and all different people. And so, it's a precious gift, and it's something that will build a much stronger relationship. So like I said, I've been in development on the asking side and the giving side now. And, when I get something that's personalized, that means a lot more than just a form letter. I'll tell you that. And what's super cool about the Love Box too, is that you can actually put things inside it. So an organization, realtors use it a lot, where they just put their card, they just tape their card right there. And then we'll write love notes. And then actually it's a tradition that a family can do themselves. So really, for a nonprofit, they want to create a relationship and then establish the relationship and then grow and strengthen the relationship. Because as you grow year after year after year, people are creatures of habit. And if they're passionate about your organization and your mission, this creates a way for you to communicate that's unlike anything else. And for also being able to read the love notes. Just think if you had your, the people that you're serving read love notes to board members, out loud in videos. We've had people do that too. And like the love agents are reading love notes, and then those are going on the original Love Box Facebook page. But if you have them, you can put them on your Facebook page. And then you have this amazing connection of appreciation. And it's a very tangible gift. And, I have just heard from so many people throughout the years, there are too many. I know we've given through charity over 11,000 love notes and thousands of love boxes. And so, not me personally, we run funding campaigns so people can do it. And we did the foster care program last year. It was so incredibly meaningful. And we partnered with Miss Georgia. And we had an event where, she performed. And I don't know if any of you saw, but Miss Georgia actually was first runner-up. And she's an amazing singer. And anyway, that event raised money to give love boxes to foster families. So foster families can do it. And then people in the organization write love notes to the foster families. So you can see it creates these connections on just like, I think of it almost like a love chain, and you're connecting every link along the way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think we've covered a lot of those questions, and I'm going to have Sarah make a comment. Sarah, I know you're a part of Beyond the Ribbon and the women's cancer group that Bobby Minnick and Beyond the Ribbon has a meeting every month. Could you share how they could utilize the Love Box notes with like Beyond the Ribbon?
Well, the Beyond the Ribbon, one of their biggest things is to help out cancer patients in any way possible. It could be taking them to an appointment. It could be getting them food. It could be just moral support. But when I went through my cancer battle, the notes that I received helped me during those very emotional times. They gave me words of wisdom, things that they'd been through. They were there to be supportive. But then when you were having a bad day and you just didn't want anybody to know, you could go pull the notes out, right? And you could reread them and build that confidence back up, because heading cancer is a huge, huge emotional roller coaster.
Mhm.
And one day you're fine, the next day you're in the bottom pit and you need all the help you can get. So those notes are there to support that person and to give them the encouragement they need during a very terrible time.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I'll add to that because, you know, but even before I created this box, actually the impetus for it was my son. Plus, my dad passed. I went through the cancer journey with my dad. He lived with us for over a year, his last year of his life, and he passed in April of 2012. And then my son, my eldest son, graduated high school in May, just 3 weeks later in 2012. And so to think that my son got to keep those love notes and, you know, put a love note from his grandpa in his wallet and read it every time he opened it to pay for something when he went away to college. I mean, you want to talk about emotion. And we did the love box. My dad's birthday actually was March 22nd, and we did the love box tradition right before he had passed. So, you know, we all sat around the table and told him how much he meant to us. And, you know, there are just no words for the impact that that makes on my kids who wrote it, my mom and dad. My mom now has all those love notes in a box because my sister passed. Well, I have two sisters that passed, but one of them passed last May. And we did the love box, and, you know, the hundreds of people that were there, everybody writing a memory and a note. It's just, there are no words to describe how meaningful, like you said, Sarah, that it really is, because you can read them over and over and over again. And that's why everybody gets their own love box. And, you know, it's been designed so it just fits like this, just like a book on a shelf. And then you take it and read it over and over again. And it's powerful. It's extremely powerful. And it, words matter. And when we use words that spread love and uplift each other, that makes a meaningful impact that lasts for generations.
Well, thank you so much, Christine, for sharing that with us. And we'll get back to how everybody can reach out to you. So we thank you for sharing the love box with us, the original love box, and how it can be used in a nonprofit area. And I don't care what kind of nonprofit organization you have, you can use the love notes. All right.
And just aside from that, you know, we haven't seen people lately. So when we come out of this and we're back out there in the world, you have some love notes with you and you see a person who is maybe not having a great day. You write them a little note and hand it to them, because we're all in a very unfamiliar place and it's not always been easy and there's a lot of anxiety. But when you start to see people again, they're going to need those loving arms around them. And that may be one of the ways to do that.
Yeah. And even until, like Maureen, you were saying about, you know, I don't want to ask for money. Well, how cool would it be if you sent love notes to all your board members now? Just a little quick thinking about you, you know, and have the kids write love notes that go to them even more impactfully. So yeah, I think that, you know, you're not always asking for money, but you are always building a relationship.
Or what about sending to the donors? What about sending those love notes to the donors, Maureen, that you've asked before? You know, that may be an idea.
You know, when I did fundraising, I've done a lot of fundraising, and we always said your thank you sets up for the next ask. I don't know if you've ever heard that, Maureen.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we always, in the nonprofits that I was affiliated with, we spent more time and energy in the thank you than we did in the ask. Because when you properly thank somebody and they feel like they are so connected to your organization and to you and to your mission, you know, I was afraid of asking for money at the beginning, but once I got used to it and I was selling a vision or something that I thought was really valuable, I was like, well, we could use 55,000. And they'd say, well, I only can do 35. I'm like, well, that gets us closer. Who can we ask for another 20? You know, like, because to me, it wasn't about me. It was about the vision and about the people that we could help. Right. And you are so passionate about that. And so, you know,
people and relationships. Right. We've been using this time to thank a bunch of our donors and showing up, putting things in their mailboxes, stopping, taking pictures, social distancing, you know. So yeah, but that's a great idea, having the kids write some notes to the donors too. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Christine. And, you know, and building those relationships are important. You know, it's like for the women of community impact, for the Easter dinner and the Mother's Day dinner, you know, and I don't mind giving this example right here. There's people that I just pick the phone up, or I go by there. I'll use Starbucks. I go by Starbucks,
Yeah.
and I just say, they say, "What you need, Celeste?" I said, "We're doing Easter, you know, dinner for the women and children over there at Home of Hope. Just tell me what you need. You got it." You know, or you go over this place, just, "What do you need, Celeste? We got you. We got your back." And it's because you build those relationships. You know, Sarah and Lynn Chapman and Bobby Minnick on our board, we have that relationship with people. They just, you know, whatever you need, you know, they'll figure it out and they'll do it. But we have constant communication. We drop notes to each other. We are in person meetings when we were able to meet in person, and you build those relationships. And I love the love notes because we've used them on numerous occasions, and we just did it recently for Mother's Day. Christine was generous to give us the love notes for the Mother's Day, where we had this project. We weren't there, but you had your staff, Maureen, where they had the children and the mothers write love notes to one another. So, you know, it's very passionate. And out of a nonprofit area, you know, I use those love notes, and I'll cry here, and I'll try hard not to cry.
Don't
You know, I've lost 2 dogs, and Mike and I, we've gone to a place where they have funeral services for dogs, and people that were very passionate and knew the love that we had for our dogs wrote love notes to them. And when we had the viewing, we had those notes out there, you know, for the dog, and we read every last one of them for them. And I don't know if I've ever shared that with you, but at our dog's funeral service, we've had love notes from people that were very close to us that we sent them to, and they sent them back to us, and we read them.
Well, that is the first I heard of dog love notes. Did not know that. That's awesome.
Well, I'll give you a testimonial if you want.
Awesome.
But you know, dogs are family.
Yeah,
They really
absolutely.
are. So anyways, because of the technical difficulties, we're going to get to go to 7:30. So we're going to be able to give everybody the right time. And just thank you, Christine, for sharing that with us. And we're going to go on to Shannon. And Shannon, are you with us? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for patiently waiting. And you're going to share with us about social media. And that is another thing in consulting with some nonprofits, you know, the do's and don'ts of social media and what mistakes do nonprofits make in regard to their social media. So would you just share with us some great tips for nonprofits and their social media posts? Because one thing, you know, that I see a lot is where you see somebody good in the community do something good, and then you will see somebody of higher level will take it and either hijack it for a personal thing, or what they will do is they want to make it about them instead of the service.
Yep, and that's a very good point, because with social media, especially for nonprofits, the most common mistake that I see them making is, first of all, to not really utilize the platforms to their fullest ability. So, for example, on Facebook, and if I have someone who's just starting a social media or a nonprofit, and they ask, you know, what platform should I be on? I typically will recommend to start on Facebook, because that has the most followers. They're going to get the most recognition on there. And Facebook has a lot of support tools that they've really designed and built in for nonprofits. So I feel like that's definitely even if you don't have a website, you know, start with your social media or your page on Facebook. And with that, you want to focus your attention towards trying to tell the story of your nonprofit, and versus all your posts being about donations that you need. So when you think about it, think about kind of like an 80-20 rule. 80% of your posts should be telling the story of your nonprofit. And maybe it's telling the story of how your nonprofit started. You know, what led you in your heart to start this nonprofit? You know, what was the catalyst that kind of led to its inception? But then also talk about, what is it, who do you help? Why do you help those individuals? If you can tell a story of one of those individuals, that is super powerful. You don't have to name names unless that person's okay with it, but just telling the story of Mary, and you can say Mary's name has been changed to protect her anonymity, but just tell the story of, Mary came to us, in this situation, and here's what Mary had been through, and here's how we were able to help Mary, and here's where Mary is today. And, really tell that journey of Mary, so that I, as someone who's maybe thinking about contributing to your nonprofit, I can really get a very clear picture of who it is that I would be helping. So think about 80% of your social media should be in that storytelling mode. And then 20% of it should be, asking for donations, so it's okay to do that, people expect that. But just make sure that it's not flipped, that 80% is asking for donations and 20% is telling the story. So a lot of times, if you've really told the story correctly, then you don't even have to ask as much for donations, because you will get them. People will just automatically really connect emotionally with the story that you're telling. And you can tell stories through, like when you're doing your social media posts, you think about 3 types of posts. The most popular is going to be video, right? So if you or your board member or even someone that you helped is able just to do a little video and to share the story of what your nonprofit is, and again, how it came to be and why you do what you do, that can be extremely powerful. And it doesn't have to be a professionally developed video, because right now the trend in social media is real. People are tired of the over-processed, the perfect looking everything. It's exhausting. I can't keep up with that, and it makes me feel inferior when I see someone else who just looks so perfect and amazing. And you think, oh, I can't relate to them. So do a video that's real. Use your cell phone, use your computer, and just do short little videos where you can talk from the heart about your nonprofit. That's going to do extremely, extremely well. But also too, even just, you've all seen the posts that have just the colored background and then it's got some words written. Believe it or not, those perform very, very well. So think about what it is that you want it to say. And then when you're creating that, you want there to be contrast. So make sure that the background and the lettering has good contrast, so that when I'm scrolling through my feed, that kind of pops out. And then the third type of post is just the image post. So if you have a good image of maybe an event or just your nonprofit or the building or anything, that you feel like is a good representation of your nonprofit, it's better to post just one picture versus a collage or a group of pictures. So just pick the one picture that you want to post. And then just write a little information. Long form posts actually do really, really well. So you can remember those first 2 sentences are typically what's going to be seen. And then you got to click see more, right? So your first couple sentences need to be good. You want it to be catching, kind of like your headline. But then you can write, even a couple of paragraphs, in the body of the information, that's absolutely okay. But you want to stick typically with those 3 types of posts and tell your story of why it is that you do what you do.
All right, I have a question for you, Shannon. I've consulted with quite a few nonprofit organizations, and one of the things is that I noticed that these nonprofits didn't have a newsletter that went out. And so one of the things is I connected them with a great copywriter where they were telling their story in their monthly newsletter, and then where they were able to share that newsletter on social media, whether it be Facebook or Twitter or wherever. So how important is that? You're telling the story is so true with the pictures and the post, but as well as with a newsletter. And how do you maximize your newsletter on social media?
So the newsletter is important because, first of all, everyone is not on social media. There are people, believe it or not, who aren't on Facebook or aren't on Instagram. So having that email list and being able to send out that newsletter is really important. But also to people that your leads that you're generating from social media, then you can add them to that email list and be able to follow up with them in a more consistent manner. But the way you want to use the newsletter on social media is you're just going to copy the link for your newsletter, and then you're going to go to do a new post, and then you're just going to paste that new post or that link into the post. And what it will do is Facebook will automatically auto-generate an image and the link of that newsletter. So then you can normally kind of enter down a little bit and type in, you know, a little line or two that shows right above that link. But then that way, the main body of the post, if someone clicks on it, it's going to take them directly to that newsletter, and they're going to be able to read that newsletter. And then when you post things on your page, like your nonprofit page, then you want to share it from your nonprofit, say, to your personal profile. Share that post from your nonprofit page into different groups. So when you start it from your nonprofit page and then you share it out from there, it's leading people always back to your nonprofit page.
Yes.
So even if you do a live or a video, always try to start it from your nonprofit page and then share it out from there.
You know, and also, and it's always about serving in the community and serving the people in need, but it's also a good way in getting consistent sponsorships as well. And not everybody that sponsors wants to be recognized, but it's also a great way to recognize your sponsors because you like for people to do business with like-minded people.
Yeah, that is true. So if your sponsors are okay with it, I think it's important, like when you do, you know, a post or maybe even thanking them and make a post out of that, then tag them in that post. And then if they're okay with it, you could even then share that post onto maybe their business page or onto their personal profile, if that's something that they've said they're okay with. And then that way, again, it's originating from your nonprofit page, and then you're sharing it out, recognizing them and thanking them for their contribution. So that can really be a way to build their efficacy in terms of what they're doing. And like I think someone said, in regards to they want their marketing dollars, but they also want to be able to do a nonprofit. So it's a way for you to be able to say, you know, anyone who donates to this event, we're going to, you know, be posting it on social media. We're going to be sharing it out to groups and tagging you. So it'll be something where they know that they'll have a social media presence by donating and participating in that event. And that sometimes can entice them to maybe make that bigger donation or to make the donation at all. So you can kind of tie it in that way a little bit too. But on Facebook, I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Because Facebook, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay.
So they do an amazing job, like I said, of really offering a lot of resources for nonprofits. And one of them that I really love is if you go to Blueprint Social Good Spotlight online. But it's kind of this whole URL here. But if you just go to Facebook and you just type in the search bar, Social Good Spotlight, what Facebook has done is they've created a whole series of trainings, online virtual trainings that you can attend. They're live webinars where you can ask questions. So if you run a nonprofit, this is a phenomenal resource for you in terms of learning a lot of different aspects about your nonprofit, but also specifically how you can maximize social media to help grow your nonprofit. So it's a phenomenal resource, and most people don't know that it's out there. Another one is, this is a Facebook page. And again, if you just type in nonprofits, this will come up. This is what their logo looks like. So it's called Nonprofits on Facebook. And this is an entire page from Facebook that's really dedicated to giving information, provide that link to the training that I just told you about is on there. But they have lives and different speakers, just a lot of resources that are on this page on Facebook where you can, get information, whatever it is that you need to learn about or need support with. You can really get that information from here. So I definitely recommend reaching out to those pages and attending some of those free trainings.
Well, that is a great tool right there, Shannon. I appreciate you sharing that. I know that you originally have said for nonprofits just starting out, Facebook is a great source to start. But let's talk about a LinkedIn profile for, let's say, the board members or the founders and things of that nature. How important is to have a great LinkedIn profile when you're a nonprofit?
I think it's crucially important.
I do too.
But if you have to choose between LinkedIn and Facebook, choose Facebook. Start with Facebook.
No, we're saying start there, but let's add the value. Let's add value now.
Yes, because most of the people that you're going to be talking to about contributions, they're companies, they're corporations, so really having that nonprofit. And again, on LinkedIn, it's free to create a business page. So you can create a business page that is for your nonprofit, and then you're able to post information just like you would on Facebook. So a lot of times what I will do is, if I'm going to post something on Facebook, I've got my LinkedIn tab opened, and then I can just copy the wording, create a post on my Facebook business page and paste it, upload that picture or upload that video to Facebook, because you don't want to share, from one platform to another. You want it to be an original LinkedIn, content or uploaded directly to LinkedIn. But that can be a big time saver. So just, if you're creating one post, go to the other tab, create a LinkedIn post at the same time, and then you can share that post from your nonprofit business page on LinkedIn into your LinkedIn personal profile. You can share it into different groups. You can, again, tag people on LinkedIn who have contributed. So it really helps to expand just the reach of what it is that you're wanting to do and then trying to do. And then the third site I would say for people would be Instagram. If they feel like they've got a good control of LinkedIn and Facebook, then create your Instagram nonprofit page. And the nice thing is that Instagram's owned by Facebook, so you can connect the Facebook and Instagram page, and you can schedule your post at the same time on Facebook Creator Studio. So once you have those pages linked, you can go into Facebook Creator Studio and create your post, and actually just click of a button, schedule it for Facebook and Instagram. And then, you've got them maybe all scheduled for a week, you've got them all scheduled for a month, whatever. But then it's done. You don't have to worry about your posts, and you can really spend your time interacting within the platform. So,
and those are all great tips, Shannon. Let's also talk about, we talked about this earlier when Deborah Fawaz was talking about your image. So you have your personal Facebook page, and then you have your business or your nonprofit Facebook page. And how important it is it, especially in the settings and things of that nature, like we say, who you are in your personal life is who you are in your business life. So it's important that they see unity.
Right. And people will, your business page is always, and your nonprofit page is always public. There's no private setting. You can create private groups, right. But if you have a nonprofit page or a business page, it's public. So, so just keep that in mind. But then also too, your personal profile, you are able to set that to a little bit more privacy settings. Your cover image on your personal profile and that little circle profile image, those are always public. So whatever you put in those two places, even if you have your Facebook settings set to the most private, those two things are always public. So just keep those in mind. But then you can have your posts, just be set to just people who are friends with you or friends of your friends if you wanted to go a little bit further. I recommend setting it to public because I feel like social media, especially when you're trying to grow your business or trying to grow your nonprofit, isn't really the place to hide. So I would have your personal profile and just be cognizant that social media is not the place for certain things, especially when you have a business or a nonprofit. So despite the number of people who share their political or their religious rants on social media, I'm telling you that that's not a good idea. Just don't do it. If you have to rant, do a post and set it only to yourself or send it just to a specific friend. But publicly putting that kind of information out there really isn't appropriate because it's out there. It's always going to be out there. Even if you delete it, it's always going to be out there. And it could hurt you, when you're trying to, reach out to certain donors. They're going to look at your personal profile and they're going to Google you because you are the face of your nonprofit. And the things that you put out there into the world represent your nonprofit just like they represent you. So
yeah, and that's so true, Shannon. Donors, volunteers, sponsors, nonprofits that you're looking to partner with, first thing they're going to do is they're going to Google you. I mean, they may have met you at a networking event or they may have had a coffee or a luncheon with you, but they're going to Google you.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that what they Google and what they see is what they saw in person.
absolutely.
Sarah, do you have some comments on that?
I have a question. Okay. So and this goes for business, nonprofits, whatever. So we're on this Zoom call, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I needed to get up for a minute. So what am I supposed to do when I have to get up? Right. Well, Deborah's got this cute little logo that comes up, right? Penny's got her nice little picture right there. What do I do?
Well,
Call Shannon. I've
call
told you
Shannon
this.
and she will do a training with you and show you how to put that cute little logo or that cute little picture up onto your Zoom account. And then that way, when you have to leave, you just click the little button that says stop video. And you can even do that now. And it'll just show like a black screen with your name, which is fine. So, and especially in today's days and age where people are working from home and maybe they've got kids going crazy in the background all of a sudden, that happens and you need to do it. So you can stop that video, your picture will come up, right? And then that way you can go do what you need to do, but do mute also at the same time so that people aren't distracted by still what's going on in your background. And I think that, just even that type of etiquette, is important because right now we are living on Zoom or Facebook just introduced, messenger rooms or, Teams for Microsoft or anything like that. So you do want to, like Deborah said, brush your hair, put on a little lipstick, a little something, you can be in your pajamas from the bottom down. But from the top up, you need to, put your best foot forward.
Well, I think this is the way of the future, right? I actually did some virtual taxes this year, but we're all learning, right? So I just sometimes I'm just not sure what exactly to do, but thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. Well, Shannon, thank you so much for all those tips and advice that you gave our listeners as well as our guests here today. Social media it's here. It's been here for a long, long time. And through the COVID-19, we're using it more and more to interact and do business. And again, who you are in your personal life is who you are in your business life. And you need to make sure that your social media pages are in alignment with who you are personally as well as professionally.
Yeah. And I do want to add that Facebook and Instagram have both added some, easy buttons where people can click support nonprofit and they can just do a post and they just pick your nonprofit. So if you don't have a nonprofit page on Facebook, then they can't do that. So, and they can do it now on Instagram. Even when you go live now on Facebook or Instagram, it gives you the option to say, do you want to support a nonprofit in this Facebook Live? or in this Instagram live. And then that way, when people are watching your live, there'll be a little information about the nonprofit that you're supporting. So even if you're talking about your business, you could still have that nonprofit that you're trying to support, just to give them, recognition and help to draw attention to them. So they've made it super easy. Even if you do like a story, on Facebook or Instagram, they have cute little stickers where it says like support nonprofit. And then you can, put in the nonprofit's link, and then it would take them directly to their Instagram page or their Facebook page. And they can support
Very
you.
good. Very good. Thank you so much. Okay. Wow. Miss Joan Williams, you introduced yourself, and also you're going to talk to us about health and wellness. So we've talked about your image. We've talked about being an executive director and taking a public facility to a private facility. We've talked about the original Love Box and how we can use it to thank our donors and to use it in our in the opportunities to thank our people that we're serving. And then we had Shannon that talked to us about our social media and how we need to present ourselves in a professional way on social media. And now, how does health come into running a successful nonprofit in this new economy?
Well, I'm going to bring it all home today. So
there you go.
Listening to all of you, my hat's off to each one of you for all the work you do, and your besides your career and your business. You started a nonprofit, or you're on the board, and I'm on the board of North Gwinnett Kiwanis Club, which is a nonprofit. So, but my hat's off to you. So, who is the main asset of your nonprofit? And that's usually you, the one who's begun the nonprofit. It pretty much hinges on your leadership to start out with. And what happens if you cannot be at work, or you can't be there, or what happens if you're kind of X'd out of the picture for a while. And it goes a lot to your own health. And so the reason nutrition ties into this workshop, that I believe, is that you're juggling so many hats already, so many responsibilities, that unless you take care of yourself, you'll find yourself having poor health or not enough energy to get everything done that you want to accomplish. And if you're a wife or a mother or grandmother, then you're not being a lot of value to your own family members.
Very good. With all the concern today about immunity, are there steps we can take to strengthen our immune system now that we are easing back into society?
Yes, because when you're running a nonprofit, as I said, and you're working your business or your career and your family, do we live in a stressful world or what? We all do, and gotten more stressful somewhat in what we've gone through for a lot of different people. And so when we're going through a lot of challenges and our body's under stress, it actually creates inflammation, and inflammation opens up our cells up to disease. So in this day and time of facing with the COVID and other viruses, we need to be very careful. How can we strengthen our immunity? And it goes back that 70% of the immune system is controlled by the gut. So the gut is the central location of where we can strengthen our immunity system. And we strengthen that by eating lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, especially organic are great. And then filling in the gaps with, I suggest, organic supplements, but also a probiotic, because a probiotic helps to add that good bacteria to your intestinal tract, which helps you to fight off infections more readily. Drinking plenty of water. Getting some exercise and some sleep, all of those things play a part in kind of lowering your stress in your body and to giving you a better resistance to fight off the infections.
Absolutely, Joan. I mean, what do you think of everybody here today? Everybody on this call here today is a wife, a mother. They have a full-time job. They volunteer. They maybe are running a nonprofit. I mean, we're burning the candle at every end. And so it's very important. So how do supplements play a part in the overall health?
Well, I used to think that you didn't need supplements or a multivitamin if you just ate well and, you ate fruits and vegetables. But after, looking at my own lifestyle, I realized by the time we get our vegetables at the grocery store, they've been through transportation, sometimes for a week or so. And then they're in storage and they sit in our refrigerator. So we don't get all the nutritional value that was inherently in those fruits and vegetables. So taking supplements just really fills in those gaps. And I call it nutritional insurance. We have insurance for everything else in our life that for the what ifs. But sometimes we overlook our own health. And so supplements just fills in those gaps to make sure that we're giving our body all the good fuel that it needs to function.
And are there any tips that you can give us on selecting the right supplements? Because there's all kinds of stuff out there.
Yeah, there's supplements everywhere. There's people selling them. There's companies that are popping up right and left with supplements. I would always encourage people never to choose supplements based upon price. And most of the ones that you find in the marketplace today, when you go to the grocery store or drugstores or wholesalers, you're going to find ones that are made in a lab and they're synthetic. And did you know that the body cannot digest a synthetic vitamin? It's a foreign material and it will go right out through your system. So if a vitamin doesn't dissolve within 15 minutes of your taking it, it's just dissolved. It's just eliminated through your body. So organic is what I recommend. Organic supplements are made from plants, whole plants concentrates. And so when you take a supplement, it dissolves in your body. To test yours, you might want to take a multivitamin if you've got one, put it in a glass of warm water and see how long it takes to completely dissolve. And that will tell you if you're getting what you think you're getting. Secondly, I would also choose companies that have a third-party independent testing where they're testing to see the claims that the company is making on their label. In a recent research study, 90% of the ones evaluated did not have the same things in the vitamins as they said they did on the label. So you want to buy at a reputable company that backs up its supplements. And also look for, is there a refund policy? If you purchase it and it doesn't work for you, you just can't, maybe it makes you nauseated for some reason, that you can get a refund with all of those. But those are some tips, but highly encourage that supplements today, the ones that have been linked to help strengthening immunity are vitamin C, vitamin D, of course, a probiotic. And then also zinc is very good for that as well. Elderberry syrup and gummies are good. So those are kind of the main ones to look at, making sure you have those in your supplement regimen. And I love to consult with people. You all know that I represent Neutralite Organic Vitamins, and they were the company that actually began that whole process 80 years ago. But I love to add my nutritional education from my background and help people make some sense out of it, and also look at maybe other healthy habits you might could incorporate.
Well, very good. Thank you so much, Joan, for those tips, because I know that everyone on this call has put in many hours a day in their personal life, their professional life, and their serving. And right. Serving is usually first. So in closing here today, what I'd like to do, I'm going to start with Joan. We ended with you. We're going to start with you. Tell us the name of your company and how we can get a hold of you. And if we could have a consultation with you, yes or no. And just, we have about 6 minutes to wrap this up.
Okay. Joan Williams, joanw8280@gmail.com is my email address. My website for the supplements and other items is amway.com/Joan Williams store.
Very good. Thank you so much. Ms. Shannon, unmute yourself.
I always forget. You can't read my mind, right? So any of the social media platforms, of course, just go to 5-Star Social Media, and you'll be able to reach me through the contact information there, or you can email me at SD for Shannon Donestay at 5starsocial@gmail.com.
And for our listeners, do you have anything that you would like to offer them?
I'm doing right now for the month of May, I'm offering just half off because so many people right now are trying to learn new skills. Like Sarah was saying, how do I upload my picture to Zoom? So I'm doing all of my trainings at half off now. So it's just $50 an hour. And typically we're doing 1 hour, 2 hour virtual trainings, and then they get the recording of that. So that's really helpful. They can go back and say, now, how did she schedule that post? And kind of really go back and review through that information. So it's been a lot of fun. And I think it's something that, like Sarah said, this is going to be the wave of the future. So instead of, people having to drive all over the place, we now see the value of that you can do things virtually, and it can be just as effective, if not more effective. Maybe not all the time, but still incorporating that, I think, more than we used to.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shannon, for your time. Miss Christine.
Sure. Christine Martinello, and I have two websites. It's the originallovebox.com website, or my training is on christinemartinello.com. And I'd be happy to talk to anybody about how they can use the Love Box, or the trainings are all about how to create a life and a family that you love more. And so I'm happy to do that as a half-an-hour consult. And then we can talk about if there might be some coaching. And I'm actually building a lot of online courses now. I haven't launched those, but that's going to be exciting to finally get the knowledge gathered and just out to people. So yeah, and then we have our Send Love to Health Heroes campaign, and people can donate right on either of those websites. At the bottom, there's a donate button.
All right. Thank you so much, Christine. Miss Deborah Fawaz. Unmute yourself, please.
She's not muted.
Oh, we can't hear you, Deborah. All right, I'm going to go to Sarah. You want to try one more time?
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yep.
ma'am. We can hear you now.
All right, so lost my train of thought. Online, my website, ddfacesbydeborah.com. I have a complimentary 30-minute consultation on there. My calendar's on there, so sign up for that. And my nonprofit is johnscreekwomen'sclub.com, all lowercase. So check that out, and you can email us on that and see our upcoming programming.
Thank you very much. Miss Sarah.
Hi, I am Sarah Poe, so it's SPOE at posecpas.com, and the website is posecpas.com. I'd be happy to, if any of you got any questions or whatever and you need some answers, you can email me, and I'd be happy to help you with that, or we can have a call, or we can do it virtually and I can answer your question that way. But I got to call Shannon first because I got to have that cute picture or something. So.
Okay. And I'm Celeste Giordano with celestegiordano.com. You can email me at celeste@celestegiordano.com. I'd be glad to have a conversation with anybody concerning your nonprofit or your for-profit, your business, on how you can grow your business to learn, grow, achieve, and prosper so you can leave a legacy business. And I want to thank Penny Rogers and WCEG Network for hosting us this afternoon. We're very grateful and blessed to have the opportunity to serve the community. Sarah and I will be back in June, on June 9th, and it will be Building a Legacy Business. And we're going to be having some guest experts on networking. We're going to have some guest experts in the financial advisor field and building wealth. We're also on June 23rd, Building Your Legacy Nonprofit event. Our guests will include topics on insurance, being properly insured, training and development for your teams and your volunteers, and sponsorships, how to connect and develop relationships with your community. So again, we look forward to seeing you back in June, on June 9th and the 23rd. And Sarah, anything that you'd like to add before we close?
No, these, every time I do something like this with Celeste, it's always an experience and I always learn something. But I want to thank Penny and her team because we couldn't do it without them. And I want to thank all of you for being here with us today because y'all are a wealth of information, and it's just getting it out there to the people so that they can have a great nonprofit.
Absolutely. And Shannon, thank you for sharing that page. And if you could put that on social media on behalf of WCEG and Sarah and I, we greatly appreciate it. And again, as Sarah said, thank you, ladies. And we apologize for the little bit of inconvenience we had in the beginning, but you know, life is like a box of chocolates, right? So have a wonderful and blessed evening, and we appreciate you, and let us know how we can serve you, and we look forward to talking with you again soon.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Bye.
you. Bye.